Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're talking about Anthem. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and salutations. Today, are there loot crates? Let's get to it. So, BioWare and Anthem came to PAX West, and they talked a little bit more. They got squeezed for a little bit more information about Anthem than what we previously knew. So let's get to the information. Now, they did let us know that there will be a demo for the game on February 1st. It's not going to be an alpha or a beta, but it will be a true demo. So what does that mean? That means that there will be more than likely 1 or 2 missions that you'll be able to play. There'll be some limited interactions in the world where you can check out an area or 2 areas and kind of see what it's all about. Playing with other people and see that interaction. And you'll be able to play maybe 1 or possibly 2 different javelins and kind of get a feel for what that will be like. And I'm sure they will give you some beginning or mid-range gear for that javelin so you can kind of see maybe a couple choices between different things that work. So you can see how the loot system works. You can see how, the aiming system and the abilities, how that all kind of plays out. All right, so they did reiterate again for, I don't know what time this is, there are no loot crates. If you buy something with real money, you know what you're going to get beforehand. Additionally, that there is no paying for power. If you want power, you have to go into the game and earn it. You can't just go to the store and pay $20 or $50 or whatever it happens to be and get this awesome gear, and then all of a sudden you're just rolling through everything. You're going to have to hack and slash and get that stuff that you want. Fort Tarsis is going to have different factions in it, and they talked a little bit about it. They talked about the Sentinels, which are kind of like the military police or police force, and the freelancers, which when the story begins are not in the best shape. They used to be, revered as the hero, and now it's more of a ragtag kind of band, and the Sentinels look down on them. So the Sentinels kind of look at the freelancers as, private investigators instead of, like Rambo. And you also have the Arcanists. The Arcanists are the faction that are researchers into the Anthem of creation and what the creators did in the world to kind of get it to where it was at and try to understand how all that works. You also have the Corvus, which is a more shadowy organization. They're a little bit mysterious, so they're shadowy, they're mysterious, and you'll learn more about them when you play. Now, you interact with certain representatives, I guess, of the different factions. So you have a retired freelancer, Yarrow, who kind of brings back the glory days of the freelancers. So he's going to be very supportive of your activities as long as they are how he sees or how he remembers the freelancers. There's Matthias, who is an Arcanist, who looks at the Shaper technology, and more than likely you're going to see some escort or rescue missions through him. Bryn, who's a Sentinel, who is a Sentinel, so she's probably going to look down on the freelancers and you to some extent. So while you're conversing with these people outside of Fort Tarsis, Yarrow is going to be very supportive and be like, yeah, good job. And Matthias is going to be like, what are you doing? And Brent is going to say, why did you miss that guy? He was right there. So in addition to the factions in Fort Tarsis, there are factions that want to destroy you and or Fort Tarsis. And they basically said there's 4 factions, although I wouldn't really consider one to be a faction. It is just more of a category of enemy. So you have the Scar, which are humanoid creatures that kind of exist in chaos, and they want to be better than humans. So they want to destroy you. Kind of, they rose up from the muck to destroy their god. They were made in the image of people, and they want to come and destroy you. There's the Dominion, which is the warlike faction in the north that wants to destroy Fart Tarsus. They're led by Monitor. He wants to use the Shaper technology for his own purposes, presumably destroy you. There are outlaws. Anthem is kind of set in the Old West. Fort Tarsus is kind of the safe haven of the world, and anywhere else outside of that is the Wild West, where you never know what's going to happen. So the outlaws are out there preying upon the weak, basically. And the fourth faction, which I would say is a category, or the monsters that you find. So anything from the rabbits to the rhinos, etc. So the Ash Titan, I think that is all in that category. Now they said that everything in the game will have matchmaking, which presents its own set of problems. You have people that aren't putting forth their best effort, or maybe they don't know what to do, or they're a little bit newer to the game, so they don't really know how to work the javelin as well as other people. But you'll have a full complement of players if you want it. And they did say that you can play everything solo, except for the some of the end game content. They called it Elder Game, where like the strongholds, where you have to have 4 players, and there's going to be some other content that they're not talking about now, but perhaps you need to have 6 players or 8 players, and it'll be a requirement partially because of the level of difficulty and the amount of interaction and cooperation that you would need in order to finish it. They said that there will be seasonal events where you don't have to always go to the stronghold, but you'll be able to get gear in another way. So every season, however long that is, whether it's 2 months or 4 months or 1 month, they will have you do, or you will have the ability to do certain interactions with the world in order to get some of the premium gear. And when I say premium, I say sought after, rare, or the more epic rare loot that you want to get. So do these seasonal activities, get the gear that you're looking to get, the better gear, something that will up your game. Speaking of gear, you will be able to craft some gear. Now they haven't talked about exactly what that is going to entail, whether that is going to entail getting blueprints for it, either from a vendor or out in the world, or breaking something down and someone saying, hey, you know what? I can take that and make something else out of it. So they haven't gone into and talked about crafting, just glossed over the surface. Very, very quickly talked about crafting and said that there's crafting, and that's it. So there will be consumables. Will that be craftable, or will you have to buy them either from the vendor or from using premium currency? Will you be able to craft gear on your own? Do you need blueprints with premium currency? They haven't really talked about it. So that's a relatively big question mark, because it sounds like crafting is going to be integral to the game. We'll have to see as information is leaked out, squeezed out of the team. Additionally, we have information about the javelins. We know that the Ranger Javelin has a shock mace as a melee. Have different types of grenades. So you have the regular, just explosive grenades, but you also have the frost grenade, which we've seen, and Seeker grenades. They have a muster point ability where you can create a rally point, and that will provide ability cooldowns for the team. So not only is the Ranger kind of an offensive, but it's also a support javelin. And then, of course, the multi-target missile battery, which is just the, I like to say, the little Iron Man volley of micro missiles. We still don't know a whole lot about the interceptor javelin, other than we know it's quick and it's very agile. So we know that, and that may be partially due to kind of the question mark about what types of guns are going to be in the game, what archetypes. So they said that at the time of E3 that they had sniper rifles, but they didn't know if they were going to keep that in the game or not. They didn't want to have one particular weapon that is better than any other. So it does a lot of damage, but it needs to have a counter to it. So it needs to have a weakness as well. So that may be part of the reason why we haven't heard a whole lot about the Interceptor. Moving on to the Storm, we know that the Storm is kind of a powerhouse ability user. They're able to hover, so they're able to stay above the ground at some level. So you probably have a maximum height to that hover, so that you're still in range of gunfire. So you can't just be way off in the distance, just shooting down lightning bolts or whatever. Additionally, you have teleportation. So if you see a big grenade or bomb or some huge thing that's going to just level you, you can teleport and get away from it quickly. Additionally, it's going to have several different kind of energy or lightning type strikes for ad control. And then we have the Colossus. Colossus, I think, is widely seen as the tank, and depending on how you load out your gear will determine if that is the case or not, because I think the Colossus and a lot of the javelins can be used a little bit differently depending on what you put on it. The abilities will always be the same, so to a certain extent you are constrained by those abilities, but you're able to kind of open it up by using different gear. So the Colossus has the heavy smash, which is the melee. They have the shield, which will mitigate frontal damage. So anything from the sides or the back still will earn you a lashing to your armor. You have the mortar, which we've seen, and we've seen the multi-mortar, which is, I believe they said, an epic mortar modification. There's the siege cannon, which is just the nuke, which you'll be able to get off 2 or 3 rounds of that before it wears off. So we know about the abilities quite in depth about the Colossus and the Ranger. We know a little bit about the Storm, and next to nothing about the Interceptor. Now, they said that there are contracts with the different factions in Fort Tarsis that you can acquire at your leisure, and they can play out different ways depending on the area and weather. So when you get a contract, it can be in different areas. So even though you've had a specific contract before, it may be in a different area. And even if it's in the same area, you could have nighttime conditions, you could have rain, you could have fog, you could have snow, whatever, and that will change the experience for you. Your pit crew consists of 3 primary members. Halleck, who is a legend in his own right as a freelancer, and then you have Faye and Owen, which are both ciphers. And ciphers are kind of people that are have this psychic talent identified when they're young. They go to and have special education and then they can sit in these chairs during missions that kind of amp up their ability and help you out a little bit more, and they can kind of get the kind of wade through the information a little bit faster. Now, Owen he tries really hard, but he doesn't have the same level of talent that Faye does, but he really wants it to make it happen. I kind of have that feeling. Faye is more of uh, part of the elite class. She had the best education. You can tell by the way she dresses that she is just so. So her ability is certainly there, but perhaps not her attitude. And we'll have to see as the game progresses. And several times they talked about you can have as much or little kind of role playing that conversations with people in Fort Tarsis as you want. So if you want to spend a lot of time talking to people, you can do that. If you want to go from one mission to the next mission, you can do that as well. You'll be able to kind of flesh out the story by having the conversations. But if you're wanting to get back into the action because your friends have already done this and you're already behind them, then you can kind of skip the conversation and come back to it later. So the storytelling that you have in Fort Tarsis is your own. The decisions that you make will affect your gameplay and how people interact with you. When you're in the group setting, you might hear something different from Yarrow or Bryn or someone on your pit crew versus what your friends hear because of the decisions that you made in Fort Tarsis. So that does have kind of an interesting tone to it, that someone could be a little bit more antagonistic towards you or have more of a connection with you depending on what storytelling options that you choose. And lastly, although they didn't specifically say so, there are going to be changes to the world as time goes on. So as time goes on, they can add real estate because they say that the Shaper technology had been activated in this area and created this area. So it is kind of a storytelling unto itself when things are changed or when something is added, that it can be attributed to the Shaper technology. And what preceded that can be used in the storytelling. So it could have been just it turned on by itself and it made this new area, or the Dominion got a hold of the Shaper technology and they, basically blighted this whole area, this whole region that used to be lush and now it's more of a desert. So changes to the world can happen during a season or over time, and then the world that you knew is going to be different than the world as it is, and that is going to be the same for everyone. So someone that comes into Anthem 6 months or 9 months or 12 months into it, it's going to be a completely different experience for them than for someone that has been there from the beginning. And the changes that you see won't be the same for them because they never saw how it used to look. And that's it. Make sure to ring the bell before you leave to be notified of all future episodes as soon as they go live. And thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.